Hi everyone. So as you can hear from my voice, I'm sick and I'm not going to be in school today, so we have virtual me. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be continuing what we were talking about last class, but we're going to start with by doing a little bit of a recap. So one thing that we need to remember is all humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. And of the 23 pairs, half comes from the biological father, half comes from the biological mother. Now, your genotype and phenotype, right, all has to do with your alleles. So the alleles is your specific form of the gene which you've inherited. So for our alleles, we only have really like two copies. So we have our dominant trait, which means you only need one allele to express the trait, or you can have your recessive trait. And your recessive trait, you need to have two alleles to express it. Now, our dominant trait, we usually represent that allele with a capital letter. And a recessive trait, we usually represent it with lowercase letters. So if we look right here, we've actually done question 1 and question 2. I just want to recap question 1 and question 2. So everything that I'm highlighting in yellow in question 1 has two dominant alleles, right? So capital T, capital T, capital D, capital D, capital B, capital B, capital F. So these would be homozygous because both of the alleles are the same, and they'd be dominant because they're both the dominant trait. What I'm highlighting now in orange would be our heterozygous. So capital B, capital F, capital D, little d, capital T, and little t. These are heterozygous because I have one dominant trait, so the one capital letter, and one recessive trait, which is the little letter. Now, the difference between genotype and phenotype. Our genotype is the actual alleles you have. The phenotype is the expression can't spell expression right now, expression of the alleles. So if we're looking at question number 2, the yellow is dominant to blue. So that means if I have one capital Y, I'm showing the expression of yellow. So I have capital Y is showing yellow because I have at least one dominant allele, or capital Y is also showing yellow because I again have one dominant allele. Little y showing blue because they're both my recessive traits. If I'm looking for square shape, dominant for round shape, capital S square, capital S, square, and little s, round. Again, question number 3 is very similar to question number 2, except they're asking us to work a little bit backwards. So the phenotype that gives the genotype. So again, to be tall, I need to have, and tall is dominant, I need to have at least one capital T. So capital T will be tall, and capital T, little t will be tall. Because short is recessive, I need 2 little t's. Pink dominant to yellow, so capital P or capital P little p will be yellow, and then little p will be yellow. So again, genotype is the alleles you have. Phenotype is how they are expressed. And the genotype really does determine the phenotype. So this is basically a recap of what we did last class. What we're going to be doing is we're going to do practice with our Punnett squares and how to figure those out. So let's look at question number 4. SpongeBob SquarePants recently met Sponge Susie Roundpants at a dance. SpongeBob is heterozygous for his square shape. So SpongeBob, if he's heterozygous, so that means it has to have 2 different alleles. So that means capital S, little s, because both of my alleles are different. I have one dominant, one recessive trait, so heterozygous. But Sponge Susie is round, so Sponge Susie. Now, round is the recessive trait, so the only way to show the recessive trait is to have 2 little s's. So now what we have to do is we have to do the Punnett square. So I've set this up for you. I want you to do the Punnett square, and then we're going to go through this together. Okay, so if we go through the answer, we would have SpongeBob on this side, Susie on this side. So when we're doing a Punnett square, key thing that we need to remember is that because half the genetic information comes from one parent and half the genetic information comes from the other parent, we separate our alleles. This S goes in this box and this box. This S goes in this box and this box for SpongeBob's contribution. So capital S, little s, little s. Now for Susie's contribution, this S goes in these 2 boxes and this S goes in these 2 boxes. So we have little s, little s, little s, little s. So square shape is either capital S, or capital S, little s. And we can see that we have 2 boxes that have capital S, little s, so 2 out of 4, or 50%. Round shape, it's the recessive trait, so it's only little s, which is 2 out of 4, or 50%. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through the next one. I'm going to read the next one. You're going to pause the video, take time to do it, and then we're going to solve it together. Patrick met Patty at a dance. Both of them are heterozygous for their pink body color, which is dominant over a yellow body color. So again, heterozygous, capital P, lower p. Create a Punnett square to show the possibilities that would result if Patrick and Patty had children. So again, pause, solve, and then we're going to go through this together. Okay, so they're both heterozygous, so capital P, little p. And again, just like last time, this P goes in these 2 boxes. This P goes in these 2 boxes, so that's for the first person. Then this P, these 2 boxes, this P, these 2 boxes. So we would get capital P, little p, capital P, little p, little p. So a pink body. So to have a pink body, because pink is the dominant trait, so pink, because it's the dominant trait, can only be due to having a capital P, so one capital P, or a capital P, little p. And we can see that we actually have 3 boxes that have a capital P. So we have this box right here that has 2 capital P's. We have this box right here that has a capital P and a little p, and this box right here that has a capital P, little p. So a pink body is 3 out of 4, or 75%, and there's only one chance where we have uh, a yellow body, which is 1 out of 4, or 25%. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you time to do the second page, and then we're going to go through it together. But we're just going to read the question together to get it set up. So if we're looking at the second page, we have the following. A male and a female bird have 4 unhatched eggs. The female is on the left, so this is our female, and it's heterozygous. So remember, heterozygous means that the alleles are different, meaning that they'll have, hint, hint, think about the definition. I'm not going to tell you more yet. You have to figure the rest out. The male on the right is homozygous recessive. So homozygous means that both alleles are the same, and they tell you that it's recessive. So pause the video, take some time to answer the questions, and then we're going to go through them together. Okay, so if we look at the genotype, so again, the genotype is the genes that you have. Now, if the female is heterozygous, so that means they're going to have one capital B and one little b. The male is homozygous, so that means both alleles are the same. Recessive means both alleles have to be lowercase. The color that is dominant is gray. And how do we know this? Is because the female was heterozygous. Right? Meaning the alleles were different and showed the gray color. So write the phenotype of the female and the male. Well, the female is showing gray. So what colors they're showing. And the male is showing black. So now we have all of the information that we need to do our Punnett square. So I'm just going to put the female on top, so capital B, little b, and the male on the side, little b, little b. And again, with our Punnett square, this goes in these 2 boxes, this goes in these 2 boxes, so the contribution of one parent. This go in these 2 boxes, this go in these 2 boxes, so the contribution of the other parent. So we have capital B, little b here. And then we have little b here, little b here. So we have 50% of the offspring will be capital B, little b, which will be gray because they have at least one capital B, so they'll have at least one of the dominant traits. And then 50% of the offspring will be little b, which was the recessive trait, which is black. So that's what they'll look like. Now, the last question, will it exactly show to these ratios? The answer is probably not. And the reason why is that there's always an element of chance. So to prove this, what I want you to do is I want you to take a coin. So a coin where you have heads and tails, and I want you to flip it 10 times. Probability will state that you should get 5 heads and 5 tails. You probably won't. And the reason why is that there always is an element of chance. That just because this is probably going to happen doesn't mean it necessarily will happen. Okay, so that's the that for page number 2. So what you need to be working on now is the other work that you have to be given, but this is also really good to look at and review when we're looking at genotypes and phenotypes.